In this tutorial, I'm going to go over the basics of type on Illustrator for the iPad. So we see we're accessing the basic type tool here. We'll click, default text will come on, and then we can highlight it, access our keyboard, and type in whatever we want to. Now I'm using the Apple Pencil here, so getting to my keyboard is an extra step where I have to click on it at the bottom there. But once we have our type in, we can then go to our properties panel on the right hand side and choose our font. And we do have some fonts there. We have to make sure the type is selected. At the bottom, you'll also notice that we do have the option for more fonts. And this will let us access any font from Adobe's collection, and we see it organized here by style. So I just chose geometric, and I can choose a particular font that is in that tag. And there are going to be overlaps, right? There might be a font that's both geometric and clean and will be in both of those areas. I can then change the size. I think it's convenient to use the slider on the left here rather than typing in a specific number. And then, of course, you can close the properties panel and move it around however you want. That's the basics of choosing fonts and laying out text on the iPad. Okay, next we are going to go ahead and look at how to create abstract compositions with type. So again, you use the type tool. This time you can access the keyboard and just write a single letter. It's going to be a capital L, and I'm going to end up repeating this a few times after I change the, you might want to change the typeface or the size. So in this case, I'm just going to change the size because I want a pretty basic L. Okay, we're going to move it and duplicate it, just using the duplicate feature. And of course, once you have a few duplicated, it's really nice to select them all at once, move them to where you want them, and then continue to duplicate them in batches. So we see very quickly this L is turning into giving us a nice sense of movement, right? It's becoming more of an arrow than a letter, right? And again, I'm not really concerned with the meaning of the letters here. I'm more concerned with their shape and their form. And so here, kind of starting to make a pattern by combining these together, right? A kind of zigzag pattern. And what's always going to happen when we have compositions like this where there's a lot happening is we're really going to want to start using multiple layers so we don't accidentally move things we don't want to. First here I'm typing another letter, the letter S, which of course, since the font is so big, it kind of came off the screen, so I had to zoom in, pan around, and I'm zooming back in. But to avoid, selecting too much, right, I'd really recommend creating new layers, which means going to your layer panel on the right-hand side and clicking the plus symbol to add a new layer, and then moving, each type of element to a different type of layer. And it really depends on how these are organized, right? They might be organized into different quadrants or different types of letters or different compositional segments. But basically, I've now locked the L layer, layer 1, so I can now focus on this S layer where I'm going to kind of build some curvature into the zigzag pattern. And again, right, with this S, it's all about the curve, right? It's not about the fact that it's a letter S that makes a particular sound. So I'm lining these up carefully with the L's. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate them again. And I'm not going to finish this pattern, but I do want to, make it clear that we're kind of making a pattern with this. And again, doing that same feature, just duplicating it, carefully placing everything. And now it's nice because you don't have to worry about accidentally moving the L's instead. All right, so the last feature I want to go over is using the create outline function on the iPad. And so here again, just starting with the basic type tool, I'm going to type my initials in this case, use the selection tool to move it onto the artboard. Again, I'm going to choose a nice font, and it's really important to choose the font that you want before you create outlines, because once you create outlines, which is basically just turning the text into an editable shape, you can no longer change its font because it's no longer recognized as type. It's just recognized as a shape. So I'm going ahead, I'm just choosing a font here. And then, all right, I'm changing to make sure the font is selected. And on the right-hand side, you'll see a T that's outlined. And here, you're going to want to choose the outline text option. If you don't see it, you just have to make sure that the text you want to outline is actually selected, and then you'll see it. And then it will convert your text to a shape, and then you can use your direct selection tool to edit the anchor points in any way you would normally be able to, right? Including rounding those corners, moving them. And so in this case, I just kind of move that base to connect to the G, and I'm going to round the corners at the top of the S and the G, right, to kind of change that function there. And now I have custom letter forms that I made with the Create Outline tool for the iPad.